It began with the smell of burning toast and the metallic sting of blood in the back of my throat. I remember the way the floor felt under my cheek, cold linoleum, smooth and unforgiving, like the silence that swallowed the room when I fell. My fingers twitched, trying to grasp something. Anything. But there was only air and the sound of a distant, muffled thud, my own body hitting the ground. The television was still playing in the corner, a cheerful commercial advertising some new detergent, blissfully unaware that I was dying. Then, nothing. When I woke, the world was blurred in streaks of white and blue. The hum of machines, the soft hiss of oxygen, the occasional beeping monitor. Somewhere nearby, someone was crying, not for me. No one cried for me. The doctor's voice was distant at first. "We've stabilized her. She was unconscious when the paramedics brought her in. Heart arrhythmia, likely stress-induced. We need to contact her next of kin. Does she have anyone?" A nurse shuffled through the folder on the desk beside me. "She has a daughter listed. Mira." There was a pause, and then the call was made. I couldn't see the doctor's face, but I could hear the conversation, crystal clear, like a bell cutting through a storm. "Yes, this is Dr. Fenwick from Mercy General. Your mother's been brought in. She collapsed in her home. It's serious. We need..." A pause. Then a sharp reply from the other end. "I'm busy." A longer pause, then a sigh. "No, I can't come right now. I have meetings." Just do whatever you have to. She'll be fine. She always is." The line went dead. She always is. Funny. That's what I used to tell her, too. When she'd scrape her knee or come home crying because another girl made fun of her lunch. "You'll be fine. You always are." Maybe that's why she said it back. Maybe it was revenge. My name is Lena Patel. I am 57 years old. I've raised my daughter Mira alone since she was 4. Her father, Raj, died in a car accident on his way home from work. He was supposed to bring home ice cream. I remember because Mira had asked for mint chocolate chip. He never made it. After that, it was just us. I worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. Waitressing during the day, cleaning offices at night. I gave up sleep comfort and any sense of freedom so she wouldn't feel the hunger I did. And for a while, she didn't. She thrived. Straight A's, debate club, student council. She was fierce, brilliant, and determined. I used to watch her study with such focus, her brows furrowed in concentration, and I'd think, she's gonna have everything I never did. But dreams cost more than money, and love, when starved, begins to rot. Myra left home at 17 after we had a brutal fight about her college choices. She had been accepted into Stanford. I was terrified. It was across the country, and I didn't have the money to help her. I begged her to choose a local school. She called me small-minded, controlling, selfish. I told her she was ungrateful, that she didn't understand what I had given up for her. That night, she packed her bags. She didn't come home for holidays. Calls were few and far between. Then not at all. I watched her life unfold through social media, speeches, internships, fancy conferences. Always smiling, always poised, always just out of reach. I suppose in her eyes, I became the burden she'd worked so hard to escape. Back in the hospital, days passed like fog. I drifted in and out of sleep, fed by tubes and monitored by machines. I had no visitors, no flowers, just silence, and the click of nurses' shoes on the tiled floor. But something changed on the 3rd day. A nurse named Clara, maybe 22 at most, with fire orange braids and a tiny silver stud in her nose, sat beside me during her break. "Do you mind if I just sit here?" she asked. "It's been a rough shift." I nodded, or maybe I didn't. I can't remember. She sighed and started talking. "You remind me of my mom. She passed last year. Cancer. She kept working until the very end. Stubborn old bat." There was a softness in her voice that I hadn't heard in years. I turned my head slowly and looked at her. "She sounds strong," I whispered. Clara smiled. She was. We fought a lot. About everything. But I'd give anything to hear her nag me one more time. The irony tasted bitter in my mouth. Clara came back the next day. And the next. She brought crossword puzzles and tangerines, and even smuggled in a tiny speaker to play old Bollywood songs she thought I might like. We became, in the strangest way, friends. One afternoon, I asked her, "Why do you come?" She shrugged. "I just think nobody should feel forgotten." That night, I cried quietly when the room went dark. Not from pain, but from the sudden, unbearable ache of being seen. The next morning brought a letter. Not from Mira. From a lawyer. Apparently, Mira had been promoted to vice president at a tech firm. The press release had her beaming, standing in front of a digital map of the world, shaking hands with CEOs. I was proud and hollow. The letter explained that Mira had granted the hospital full power of attorney to make medical decisions on her behalf. In other words, she didn't want the responsibility. She was letting go. There was no message attached, no note, just paperwork. I stared at the document for hours, wondering when exactly I became something to be managed rather than loved. And then, the chest pain returned. This time, I knew it wasn't just physical. This time, it was grief, heavy, sharp, and merciless. But I didn't die again. A month passed. My strength returned slowly. Clara started pushing me to do laps around the ward. I moved like a ghost, but I moved. It was during one of those slow walks that I met Harold. Harold was 83, had one lung, 2 fake hips, and the heart of a poet. We sat in the garden on Tuesdays. He recited Shakespeare and told me stories about the wife he'd lost 20 years ago, but still spoke to every morning. "Regret is a strange thing," he said once. "It grows like mold in places you thought were clean." I laughed bitterly. "I think I'm made of nothing but regret." He looked at me, eyes soft but unflinching. "Then clean it, while you still can." I didn't know what to say. 2 subplots emerged from those days. Clara's dream of becoming a trauma nurse, despite her own self-doubt, and Harold's unfinished letters to his estranged son. We were all broken in different ways, but somehow, in that small ward with its peeling paint and humming machines, we started stitching ourselves back together. Clara applied for the trauma program. Harold mailed the first letter. And I started writing too, a letter to Mira. I didn't write to scold her or demand anything. I wrote to tell her I was sorry, not for being her mother, but for not realizing how much pressure I had put on her to be my redemption. I told her about the hospital, about Clara, about Harold, about how quiet the world becomes when the person you loved most doesn't love you back. I told her that I forgave her, and that I hoped one day she'd forgive me too. I never got a reply, but I kept living. Eventually, I left the hospital. Clara cried when I hugged her goodbye. Harold waved from his window, and I promised I'd visit. See, I did. Year passed. I moved into a small apartment near the sea, started volunteering at a local library, leading reading groups for children. I laughed more, breathed easier. And then one day I got a knock on the door. I opened it, and there she was. Mira, hair shorter, eyes tired, holding a small plant in a cracked ceramic pot. I didn't know what to bring. She said, softly. I stared at her, my throat locked. "I don't deserve to come in," she added, but I wanted to try. I stepped aside. We sat at the kitchen table. She looked at the floor for a long time. "I got your letter," she whispered. "I read it 100 times." I said nothing. I was angry. For so long. At you. At Dad. At the world. I thought if I ran far enough, worked hard enough, I wouldn't feel it anymore. But it just followed me. I nodded. "Pain does that." She looked up. Her eyes were glassy. "I don't know how to fix us." "Start by coming back," I said. "Just come back." That night, she stayed. We made tea. Talked until the sun came up. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever is. But it was real. And real is enough. If you've ever felt forgotten, unwanted, or unloved, hear this: the human heart is stubborn. It holds on long after it should let go. But sometimes that's how healing begins. In the holding on, in a hospital room, in a letter, in a pot of soil,